All right, Shalom. You reached the He Prayer channel. My name is Isaac Mawath. But first and foremost, I want to say call Halayim, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harakhakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Had the Rock, where I learned this truth from, and who rule well. Had the Rock meaning the way. They were calling themselves followers of the way. They were calling them the way, which is the equivalent of those that have the 100% truth, which is the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the elect, the Bakyar, the 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. 12 tribes of Israel consisting of so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to those Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So this is not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that died in this truth. It says the dead should be rose up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah's return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harachakwadash for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Kashah Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harachakwadash. Allow this to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the Bakiyar. This topic title is Esau Deceived the Nations, right? And the deception has been so thorough that they even believe in their own, they believe in their own lies, man. You know, especially when you hear the rhetoric, you know, that these Edomites spill, and it's always the same shit, just regurgitate it. But you hear the rhetoric that they spill, it's all manufactured through lies, their own lies. You know, but this is the book of Obadiah. It says Edom will be humbled, which basically this whole book, which is just one chapter, is all about Esau and how he's going to be destroyed. You know, and they think that in their mind that they're going to continue forever pursuing the Psalms, the 49th chapter, the 11th verse. But this is verse 1. It says, the vision of Obadiah, thus saith Yahweh, concerning Edom. Edom are the one, which means red, which is descriptive of the so-called white man, who is Esau. Esau in the Hebrew, Ashashua, which means wasted away is he. He's wasted away because he has no melanin. Therefore, his blood shows forth through his skin. He will be considered translucent, which that's the mark of Cain being lived through Esau on this side. It says, we have heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Right. And that ambassador, get it right. The first ambassador would be Gamal Abdel Nazir, was the second president of Egypt serving from 1956 until his death in 1970, and is known for his role in the Egyptian Revolution and his pan-Arabist policies. See if I can get a picture of him, a portrait. So this individual right here, he made a statement. How did the Jews leave black but come back white? You know, which his people are not the original Egyptians. You know, the original Egyptians would be the South Sudanese today, known for their height and known for their complexion. So going back, it says, arise ye and let us rise up against her in battle. Right. So now today there's many ambassadors among the heathen. And what Yahweh Shem Shah has been doing is building these nations for this World War III. This is Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8. It says, therefore wait ye upon me, save Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to the prey. And the prey is these heathen nations. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms. So this is the reason why, you know, Esau is in the position that he's in. This is the reason why Ammon, which is a so-called Japanese, are in the position that they're in. Moab, which is so-called Chinese, are at the position that they're in because all these nations have, you know, Yahweh Shem Shah built up to do what? To pour upon them my indignation, his righteous anger, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. Right, they're going to be destroyed in nuclear war or the weapons from his armies, which are going to be the chariots, so-called UFOs, unidentified foreign objects, or, you know, more recent terminology, UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? So these nations are about to rise up against you Edomites, you so-called white people, in battle. Verse 2, it says, behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. And let me see something real quick. I'm going to go to the Amplified version. So verse 2, it says, behold, Edom, I shall humiliate you and make you small among the nations. You are greatly despised. Right. So when you do a panoramic pan around the world, you know, you see the disdain that these nations have for these Edomites, man. You know, they murder millions. You know, they destroy nations. They destroy their countries. You know, they cosplay. They oppress a man's heritage. You know, and you know they bring about degeneracy. So you know, the Most High has put the spirit on these nations to despise these so-called white people, these Edomites. Verse 3, it says, the pride of thy heart, which when you go into the Apocrypha, it talks about, let me see if I can find it. It talks about your mind. You know, it's not the muscle in your chest that pumps oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in your body. I think it's 7. It might be 5 though. Let me do this though. Uh, Let me see if it's 5. I don't think it is. No, just bear with me. I think it's 7. Haven't brought it out in a while. Let me see. Hold on. Trying to think. Hold on. Um, I'll probably have to look for it. Um, Hold on. Let's go back to Sirach. Believe it's in the Wisdom of Solomon. Uh, Hold on, this man. Okay, I got it. The water y'all bashing y'all shall bashing our crocodiles. Um, this is Wisdom of Solomon. I'm gonna start at the top. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "For the ungodly said, reasoning with themselves, but not aright. Our life is short and tedious, and in the death of a man there is no remedy. Neither was there any man known to have returned from the grave." But this is the point. It says, "For we are born at all adventure," for, kind of like coincidence, or a perfect coincidence, kind of like by chance, especially considering how hard it is to impregnate or how hard it is to even get a woman. Everything got to line up through the will of Yahweh Shem Shai and predestination. It says, "And we shall be hereafter as though we had never been." Right. Also alluding to the fact that we live many lives. It says, "And we shall be hereafter as though we had never been," because when we're born again, we don't have any remembrance of our past life. "For the breath in our nostrils is as smoke," almost like would you and you can see it, especially when it's cold. You'll see the vapor when you breathe. It says, "And a little spark," and that little spark is talking about your spirit, right? "In the moving of our heart," which is not talking about the muscle that's in your chest that pumps oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. It's talking about your mind, which in the Hebrew, the word for mind is lab, right? So the Most High is putting in the mind of these heathen nations to despise Esau. Verse 3 in Obadiah says, "The pride of thy heart," which is your mind, "have deceived thee." So their pride have deceived them, man. You know? And Esau is the perfect example on how not to be, because he was created to be the wicked, right? It says, "Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock." And that's why you always see them rock climbing and cliff hanging, because they had two stints dwelling in caves, which the first was in Mount Seir, which would be the modern South Jordan mountain ranges. And the second was fairly recently when they were in the Caucasus Mountains, as they established the Khazarian Empire, which was basically uh, in the middle of a major trade route. You know, it says, "Whose habitation is high," and that's the reason why they got the skyscrapers and they got the high rises. You know, and I've been in uh, a high rise apartment before, and it makes you feel kind of queasy, man. It makes you feel almost, well, I don't know, maybe because I don't like heights like that, but you have to have a certain spirit to be comfortable living at such elevation, man. It says that saith in his mind or his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? And they don't think that they'll ever go down, man. And they think that they're gonna put Jake back into slavery. It says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, which the eagle was known for being the highest flying bird, and is a very proud bird. And it's almost like the Dominus Rex in Jurassic World or Park that just went about killing for sport. Especially when you go watch, you know, specials on, the Eagle, like on Discovery Channel or Animal Planet. Sometimes they'll just kill just to kill. And that's Esau, man. It says, and though thou set thy nest, which its nest is its defense. A bird builds a nest to, defend its eggs, defend its chicks, right? And in this case, it's Esau's space defenses, because he's going to try to combat Yahweh Shai when he returns with the army of angels. It says, though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith Yahweh. Right. And he's going to bring him down with the armies that are going to accompany Yahweh Shai when he returns. Real quick, this is St. Matthew chapter 26, verse 43. It says, thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, showing you that Yahweh Shai and Yahweh are two separate entities. It says, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels. Now, legion, if I'm not mistaken, is a Roman term. Uh, it says the size of a typical legion varied throughout the history of ancient Rome, with complements ranging from 4,200 legionaries and 300 equites drawn from the wealthier classes. In early Rome, all troops provided their own equipment. So about, 4,200, 4,500, but you got to times that by 12. Let me see. I'll just go with the highest number, 4,500 times 12, which would be 54,000 angels, man. And one angel can destroy the whole earth, right? So let's go back to Copilot. For Obadiah, it says, the pride of your heart, Gawa Nawaba Lapka, the pride of your heart. Keyword etymology, pride, Gawa, root meaning to rise, to exalt oneself. And Esau, he constantly exalts himself. Now he's trying to exalt himself as some sort of conqueror But in all actuality, he he deceived and stole, right? The word for deceive, nasha, also where you get NASA, to lift up falsely, to mislead. And that's what Esau he does, man. He misleads the people. Breakdown. It says Esau's symbolic lofty dwelling represents power structure built on arrogance. The text shows a pattern. When a nation elevates itself beyond measure, it becomes blinded by its own propaganda. A layman commentary, this verse is basically saying Esau got so confident in his position that he fooled himself first, and then everyone else followed the illusion. And a lot of that goes into his different religions. Those frogs that croak. When you go into the book of Revelation, his Hollywood and his twisted take on history, man. Because that's basically what I do all day, just going into history, man, and going on reels on Instagram and uh, watching different videos and leaving comments and leaving scriptures. This is Second Thessalonians, which Paul went to the Israelites in Thessalonica, right? Because our people were scattered all throughout the Mediterranean, Asia Major, Asia Minor, and then you also have some Israelites that were in Egypt and Ethiopia, right? So this is Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 1. It says, "Now we beseech you," which means to beg, brethren, by the coming of our Adonai Yahweh Shah HaMashiach, and by our gathering together unto him, that ye be not soon shaken in mind, because it was a stumbling block then, because they thought that Yahweh Shah was going to bring the kingdom at that time, right? But even going into prophecy, both kingdoms would serve in captivity together during the salvation of Yahweh Shah, which the 10 tribes were already over here in the Americas. That's why Yahweh Shah says he has sheep, but not of this fold, dealing with the northern kingdom. It says, "Or be troubled neither by spirit, nor by word, nor by letter, as from us, as that day of Hamashiach is at hand." Right. Because it wasn't. It says, "Let no man deceive you by any means." And in these times, it's easy to deceive you people, man. And a lot of you are deceived. And it's even worse now because of AI. It says, "For that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed." And that man of sin is talking about Esau, the so-called white man, which he started calling himself white in the 1600s. It says the son of perdition, which perdition goes into the word destruction. It says, "Who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshiped." And that's why he has his image as the host of heaven, and the heavenly Father and his Son. So that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And that's him having that dominion that Isaac blessed him with. It says, "Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and now you know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. And we're in a time in which he's being revealed, starting with the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, right? Verse 7, it says, "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work," which it was working, with the Greeks and then with the Romans, which in this particular time, it was Rome that were the uh, main superpower, I'll say. It says, "Only he who now letteth will let," and that is Yahweh, because he's letting it happen because of prophecy, and prophecies have to fill their measure before the next one can run its course. It says, "Until he be taken out of the way." He's going to be taken out of the way with fire, with nuclear destruction, and of course the weapons from Yahweh Shai and the angels. It says, "And then shall the wicked be revealed, whom Yahweh Shai shall consume with the spirit of his mouth." And the spirit of his mouth are his prophets, right? Teaching the word, preaching the truth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, right? Dealing with the weapons of the chariots. It says, "Even him," who the him is Esau, "whose coming is after the working of Satan." Right, the spiritual demon Satan, man. That's where they get their power. "With all power and signs and lying wonders." So they're pushing out lying wonders, man. It says, "And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth." Right, because this truth is a gift. And the masses of these people are not going to receive this gift. They're not going to receive the truth. It says that they might be saved, right? Because this truth is only um, predestined for the elect, right? It says, "And for this cause the Most High shall send them strong delusion." So if you're deceived, it's because the Most High rejected you and sent you strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. And all you people believe in these lies that this damn devil done spewed out of his mouth, man. "That they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness." Right, and that's the mass majority of you people, man. We go to Etma Online for the word delusion, which is act of misleading someone, deception, deceit, a deceiving, false impression or belief of a fixed nature, you know? So, um, going back to misleading, as Copilot went into in for the word deceive. But going back to Copilot, Lashawan Kodash, working of deceit, Pa'al Shah Kad, keyword etymology, line wonders, manufactured signs, engineered persuasion. And that's exactly how this society is built, by manufactured signs and engineered persuasion, man. In the Greek, deceive, uh, planio, to cause to wander off the path, right? But fortunately, the elect have the way. They have the path, which is Yahweh Shai. Breakdown. Paul describes a system powered by false miracles, and today their false miracles are their technology, meaning engineered narratives, illusions of greatness, and deceptive achievements. One big deceptive achievement is that they say that they went to the moon. AI commentary in simple terms, Esau's symbolic system uses hype, spectacle, and media like influence to steer nations away from truth, right? So going to Psalms chapter 55, verse 21. It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter. Let's see if I could do amplified. It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but his heart was hostile. But his mind was hostile, right? His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. And that's how Esau is, man. Look how many times he's talking about, well, peace this and peace that, and then he'll bomb the whole peace delegation, man, and kill them all. You know? It says, cast your burden on Yahweh, release it, and he will sustain and uphold you. He will never allow the righteous to be shaken, slip, fall, fail. Right. So if you're of the elect, you're good. But you will have to be doing the things that the elect will be doing. It says, but you, O Yahweh, will bring down the wicked to the pit of destruction. Men of blood and treachery will not live out half their days. But I will boldly and unwaveringly trust in you. Right. And a day to Yahweh Ba'ashim Shah is 1,000 years, man. So Esau, he hasn't been in power for 1,000 years in this little season, man. And he's already declining. He's already circling the drain. Going back to co-pilot Lashwan Kwadash, Madazak, Dabaryan. Smooth words. Key etymology, smooth, matak, sweetened, polished, and you just got to expect that everything that comes out of this devil's mouth is a lie, man. The word war, korab, conflict, ambush. Breakdown, the psalmist shows a pattern, deceptive diplomacy. Words appear peaceful, but intentions move toward conflict. And you just seen this happen in real life, in real time, with the whole Iran war. You saw deceptive diplomacy, words appear peaceful, but intentions move toward conflict. AI commentary, this is the classic Esau deception formula. Talk peace, plan pressure. You know? So going to Revelation. I'm just going to start at verse 3. This is Revelation chapter 20, verse 3. It says, and the angel hurled him into the abyss and closed it and sealed it above him, preventing his escape or rescue. Which, this is when he was in Europe underneath the Moors, which were Israelites. In the bottomless pit, which in the Amplified version it said abyss, is Europe because it has no natural resources. Therefore, this devil went about instilling everybody else's resources. It says, and cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more. So every time that the juice is loose, he's going about deceiving the nations, man. So the Most High had him chained up to prevent that, but it says till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And that fulfillment happened during the start of the Renaissance, when he came back into power. It says, and after that, he must be loosed a little season. And we're in that little season in which the so called white man, who is Esau, has been loosed, right? Lashuan Kodash, Lata Ya'ah Ha Gawayim, to deceive the nations. Keyword etymology, deceive, in the Greek, plananes, to mislead through influence. Nations, Gawayim, groups, peoples. Breakdown, Revelation frames deception as a global influence mechanism, not a single event. It's systemic, long-term, and ideological. AI commentary. This verse is saying Esau's symbolic system spreads ideas that shape how nations think, not just what they do. And one big thing that he wanted to do was spread that LGBTQ shit, and even threaten invasion to certain nations that went against it. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. It says, behold, his soul, and the his is Esau, which is lifted up because of pride, is not upright in him. He wasn't created to be upright, man. He ain't created to be righteous, to be pure, right? It says, but the just, which is the elect of the nation of Israel, shall live by his faith, the confidence in the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua. Verse 5, yet also because he transgresseth by wine, which is his ideologies and his philosophies, he is a proud man. And this damn devil is proud, man, for no reason. And it could be the weakest link, too. It could be a frail devil. And he'll still act like he's Alexander the Great. It says, neither keepeth at home. And that's why he's in everyone's land. And that's why Iran had to wipe out 27 U.S. bases. It says, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Let me go to the Amplified. I'm going to read on verse 5 again. It says, moreover, wine is treacherous and betrays the arrogant man, so that he does not stay at home. His appetite is larger like Sheol, and he is like death, never satisfied. He gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all peoples as if he owned them. You know? And that's the spirit in these damn devils, man. Verse 6, it says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe, which woe means destruction, to him that increaseth that which is not his. And he's going around increasing the things that are not his, man. Look at Venezuela's oil. And now he can't even he can't do nothing with it, man. It was just a big spectacle. And he thought what they did in Venezuela was going to be Iran. And they got a rude awakening, man. It says, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. which that clay goes into the word, let me see,
Strong's H 5671. Avteet.
aptit,
Avteet.
which means heavy debts or pledges, just to prove it. So it says weight of pledges, heavy debts. And what is he? Let me see. I don't even think they got this shit no more. The U.S. debt clock. I think they just said, fuck it. Let me see if they got it. Okay. They probably just stopped the whole shit. So right now, let me see. So the U.S. total debt is 113 trillion, man. That's the U.S. total debt, 113 trillion, which is insurmountable. It seems like they added a lot more on the debt clock page. Then they got the tariffs, which they got 235 billion off of tariffs. Yeah, man. So defense war 944 billion and rising. So this asshole's he's done, man. He's finito. Going back to co-pilot Lashwan Kadash Hagawayan Wa Kabats gathers the nations. Keyword etymology enlarges Rakab to expand territory or influence. Deceive once again Nasha to mislead by ambition. Habakkuk describes a figure who expands influence through ambition mixed with deception, pulling nations into his orbit. And that's Esau. AI commentary in plain terms, Esau's symbolic empire grows by selling a dream. Don't they got something called the American dream? It says, but the dream isn't real. It's not real, man. So, summary, Esau's deception in scripture is portrayed as self-deception, national deception, spectacle, persuasion, diplomacy, manipulation, global influence, ideological control, expansion, exploitation, all symbolic, all prophetic, all tied to patterns of power, pride, and misleading narratives. Not, well, then here comes AI. Got to be politically correct, which it is talking about a real world ethnic group, which is the Edomites. So with that, I hope at least one brother of the elect has been edified. Did this lesson to the best of my ability, and I'm gonna say shalom.